What is up, guys? It's Jake from QuadHunting, and today we are talking a little more Lions news, and it's the story that's been making the rounds the last couple days, about Calvin Johnson saying in an interview that when he left Detroit, the way things ended left a bad taste in his mouth. And it's important to remember the journalists, ESPN, MLive, the Free Press, have all kind of assumed it's been money. Calvin did not say what left a bad taste in his mouth when the reporter asked him what left a bad taste in his mouth. He just he said, you know what, it's over, it happened, I'm over it. And I kind of don't like how he did that. I'll explain that later. But all these journalists, ESPN, the Free Press, MLive, have wanted to say that they assume it's financial. They assume a financial reason is why Calvin's not happy with the way his time in Detroit ended. So this is kind of what I figured out about it. According to the CBA, if a player retires early or walks out away from the team is allowed to ask for the signing bonus back. That's the money. That's the only thing the team is allowed to ask the player to repay. It happened before with Charles Rogers and the Lions. The Lions were able to get his signing bonus back after he flunked multiple drug tests and etc. They were able to get their signing bonus back that they paid him. So when Calvin retired, the Lions could do that, and they ended up doing it. Calvin had a $3.2 million bonus that year, or for the next couple years in his contract, I think it was, and the Lions asked for $320,000 back. They could have asked for the whole $3.2 million. They did not. They only asked for 10% back. And a lot of people think that this is what put a bad taste in Calvin's mouth, that the Lions were asking money back after everything he had done for the franchise. So I can see both sides here. But according to the CBA rules, the Lions they're not in the wrong. They did what they're allowed to do. It's not like they're trying to they were underneath the table telling Calvin, give us the money back, etc. They ended up, they were in the right. They did what they were able to do. But they did not ask for the whole thing back. They asked for 10% back. I don't know why 10%. I mean, $320,000 for a player is not that much, especially Calvin. He's made $13 million in his career. But for what it is to Calvin, it's much less for an NFL team like the Lions, who is worth I can't remember exactly what Forbes listed him at, but I know it's over if you were to try to buy the Lions right now, you'd have to pay over $1 billion. They're owned by the Ford family, who owns Ford Motor Company and also the Lions. They have plenty of money. They don't need the money back. So for what that $320,000 was to Calvin, it's definitely a lot less to the Ford family and the front office there. But it's important to remember, Calvin never said why he's upset at how his time ended with the Lions. It was assumed by all these reporters that money was it. So it could have been any multitude of things. It's talked about how he had wanted to retire before the 2015 season, ended up not until after the 2015 season. So maybe, promises were made by the front office, by people in charge of what the season was going to be like, playoffs, making promises that they didn't know they could fulfill, trying to keep him on board. Promises that, could have gone wrong, and then he retires after that. It could have been that left a bad taste in his mouth. It could be financial. It's important to remember that he hasn't said yet, and until he says, we'll never know. It does make the Lions look a little bad. This is how you treat your best player you've had since Barry Sanders, who also retired early. A lot of comparisons made between that and how Barry was kind of left with a bad taste in his mouth when he retired. Well, it's important to remember we don't know exactly why yet. Until Calvin says so, we won't. So, I can see Calvin's side. He played 13 years for this team, 13 years, from 2007 to 2015, and they're asking you for money back. But at the same time, the Lions didn't do anything wrong with saying we want the money back, because they're allowed to. It's written in the rule book. The CBA allows them to do this, and what they'd have to do for this not to happen is kind of hypocritical almost, how teams are allowed to ask for money back, but they're allowed to sign these players these contracts backloaded. You're going to make that $100 million deal. They make little, and then at the very end of this contract, they make $30 million, and then cut the guy before that because he's old and not worth $30 million. The player doesn't see that $30 million. It's kind of two-sided, where teams are allowed to do that, but a player who retires early is not allowed to, has to give back money. I get that. But it's in the CBA, which the players' union, who represents the players and the players' wishes, allowed to happen. They allowed this to get through, and they signed it saying, yep, we're okay with that. Take that, and you can ask for money back if a player retires earlier, had so many drug issues and failed tests and all that kind of stuff. It's allowed to happen. The players' union allowed it. If they want this to change, it's going to have to wait till the next CBA negotiation period. Talking fast, so I'm stumbling over words. They have to wait for that, and then they have to renegotiate it and try to get that fixed, where teams have to honor contracts if they sign them. But that goes against the whole guaranteed thing. It's very different between the NFL and the NBA. The NBA is allowed, they make these guaranteed contracts, and if they cut a player, they have to pay that contract out to the player, no matter what. Happened with the Pistons and Josh Smith, where we were still paying out dead money to him. We were paying out money to him that was going against our cap space. That didn't help the team. It helped addition by subtraction, but it was not. You were not paying a player that was on the team right now. You were paying a player that you wanted, that you got rid of, that you cut. And so, you kind of saw it with Sue too, where he kept restructuring his contract with the Lions so they can have cap space, and then his contract at the very end came so backloaded, and then we had money going to Sue, even though he had left the team to go to Miami. We were paying Calvin the last season because it was he had dead space because he did the same thing. He had renegotiated so the team could have cap space. But I see where both sides come from. Like I said, the Lions were in the right by doing what they did. Calvin had I guess you could be, it's kind of two-sided where a team can expect that, but not have to honor their end. So, let me know what you think about this whole situation. Do you think the Lions were in the right? Do you think Calvin was in the right? Do you think both sides it's kind of a stupid issue that's talked about? It's the middle of the offseason. This is what happens. OTA started for some teams today on Monday. That's when I'm recording this. I don't know if it'll be up on Monday. It might be. But, some teams just started OTAs, so we're going from that. The draft to the OTA season is really slow and dead, and people are trying to find news, and that's exactly what this is. A reporter sat down with Calvin Johnson. Calvin finally talked about the Lions. He doesn't do that a lot in the interviews, and mentioned that he didn't like how it ended. Would not go further, and so now it's news because they gotta find out. Why was he upset? He won't say. We're gonna make assumptions, that kind of thing. It's kind of what the story is. So. My eyes, this story got blown way out of proportion, way too quickly. I don't think it would have gone this far had it not been Calvin, but had it been just some random, if it was Dan Orlowski last year and we had cut him and he was talking about how they made him, or he had retired last year before his contract was out and the Lions made him pay back, that definitely would have been swept under the rug. But when it's the team's best player for the last decade, it makes bigger news, and it makes the Lions look worse because they were, according to all the journalists, they were asking for money back. We don't know that. They did ask for $320,000. We don't know if that's why Calvin's upset. That's what I'm meaning to say. So if you liked the video, leave likes, subscribe to the channel, leave comments down below, like I said, what you think about this situation. Is Calvin in the right? Is the Lions in the right? That kind of thing. And be sure to keep watching, checking the channel. I'm going to have a couple more things coming out here soon that I'm going to work on. So stay in touch with the channel. Subscribe. If you subscribe, hit the bell. You'll get all the notifications for when my videos come out. But if you like the video, all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys all next time.